Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning. This is our next in our series of abatement academies, and this one is focused on OAA application lessons for cities and counties. Better every day, OAA application lessons and smart fixes for cities and counties. If anyone is on that is working with or for state agencies, a lot of this stuff will apply. There are some nuanced differences and things. But this is mostly focused for cities and counties since right now, since they are currently in an open application period. Next slide. So your presenters today will be myself, Charlie Linticum. I'm the Director of Operations for the Opioid Abatement Authority, which if you're not familiar with me and my role, I oversee all of the grants processes, as well as outreach and technical support to cities, counties, and state agencies. And also presenting and really the person that's doing both the bulk of the heavy lifting and put the bulk of the work putting the presentation together, and probably the bulk of the work fixing problems any of you all have run into with our new grants portal is Sharika Bridges, our senior grants compliance analyst, who does detailed technical support, does a lot of the making sure we're all dotting our I's, crossing our T's, putting together award packages and following up with in localities on those and various reporting efforts and system issues and everything in between, and making sure I know what I'm doing and doing what I said I would do as well. So from there, so our agenda for today, and I have 3 sections to the presentation. We're going to start off by preparing to apply and trying to set yourself up for success, developing plans, reviewing the application guidelines, understanding requirements, and those types of things. Then we'll move into nailing the applications. That's steps for successful application completion and submission, collecting necessary information, funding portions, supporting documentation, and guidance for completing the different sections of the application. And then part 3 will be kind of a guiding principles, kind of your high level takeaways that are summaries based on the information that Sharika is covering. And if you've sat on some webinars of how to do things before, you may hear some repeated information, but the reason that information is being repeated is this was developed based on issues that we as staff run into and end up providing a lot of support to cities and counties on, and which makes the process take much longer for awards to get through, for applications to be able to be reviewed, and the like. And so trying to give a template for how to do the best possible from the beginning. And we'll also we'll take this slide deck and any feedback and questions we hear from you all today and turn that into a guidance document that we'll put out on our website in the next week or so. So from there, I think I will turn it over to Sharika for section 1.
Thank you, Charlie. So we'll first talk about preparing to submit your application and setting yourself up for success. So as we dive into this section, there are some tips related to preparing a renewal application. So with a renewal application, there's some information that will need to be completed in regards to your current fiscal year project. So if you're looking to prepare an FY27 renewal project, you will need some FY26 data. So you'll need to know your projected expenditures, and you'll need those expenditures by expense category. So we're talking the personnel, operating, or capital. But then you would also need to know your expenditures by your OAA approved line items. So within your personnel budget, you have approved line items. The same goes for operating, and some projects have approved line items for capital expenses. You'll also need to know your FY26 projected expenditures by revenue source and category. So what we mean by that is you have your non-OAA funds. So if you're pledging any non-OAA matching funds, such as direct distribution or any other source of funding. And then you have your OAA category of funds. So that would be your individual distribution, your gold standard if you're a gold standard locality, and your cooperative partnership funds for cooperative projects. So you'll need to know how much you've expended based on those different revenue categories as well as the revenue sources. You'll also need to know your FY26 year-to-date expenditures. And by year-to-date, we mean the date that you are completing and submitting the application. You'll need to know those actual year-to-date expenditures again by the expense category. So we're talking your personnel, your operating, and your capital categories, as well as those approved line items within those expense categories. And the same goes for your revenue sources. So we're talking your non-OAA compared to your OAA funding, as well as those different categories within that OAA funding section. You'll also need to know for your FY27 renewal application, you'll need to know how much funding is needed for the project. And then you'll need to know like overall, and then you'll need to know how much are you going to be requesting from the OAA to support the project, as well as if you're planning to pledge any other non-OAA funding sources to support the project as well. When you're doing your renewal applications, again, if this is a FY27 renewal application, you'll also need to be able to indicate your year-to-date performance measures achieved. Again, when we talk about year-to-date, we're specifying the date that you're actually completing or submitting the report, or excuse me, the application. So with these renewal applications, you'll also need to provide us with a status update for the OAA funded project that is being renewed. You'll need to give us information regarding any potential scope or funding changes, which are categorized as amendments for the project for the upcoming fiscal year. You'll also need to report on the total amount of direct distribution funds that your locality has received prior to FY27. So that would include through FY26. And that information will be used to indicate in the direct distribution report. So as you're thinking about the direct distribution report, that is a requirement for any locality that is either serving as a fiscal agent or participating in any OAA funded project. So even if you're a fiscal agent for a cooperative partnership project, your partner localities will still be required to complete a direct distribution report, and that is done through the portal. One recommendation that we have regarding direct distribution reporting is that you contact your city or county finance office. That is going to be where you would obtain the information regarding the locality's expense and expenditures of the funds, as well as you can obtain information regarding any direct distribution settlement funds that are being held in reserves. So we definitely recommend that you collaborate with your city or county finance office for the entire application process, but specifically for the direct distribution information. Again, we want to reiterate that this is a requirement for any locality that is participating in any OAA funded project or grant. And then when you look at the top of the screen in regards to the information that you need regarding your projected expenditures, your year-to-date expenditures, the amount of funding that you need for your renewal, and then your year-to-date performance measures that you'll be reporting or providing information on in the renewal application, we wanted to outline those items because we have found that these sections include common mistakes and errors as it relates to the submission of renewal applications. And we also want to reiterate that if you enter the budget information incorrectly, so if you're entering your year-to-date expenditures or your projected expenditures incorrectly, or you don't indicate the correct amount of funding that you need for FY27 to support your project, those could significantly impact your FY27 award. So we definitely want to stress that you need to be engaging with your city or county finance office. You need to be ensuring that the information that you provide in those sections is as accurate as possible, because you don't want that to negatively impact your FY27 renewal award. So as we're moving on to some OAA recommended information to consider before completing and submitting your application, we want to reiterate the fiscal year for the OAA grant awards. So our awards to cities and counties, they follow the Commonwealth's fiscal year structure. So that includes July 1st to June 30th of each year. And that's the standard period of performance for our grants to cities and counties. So keep that in mind as you are working on your application. We also recommend that you review the OAA grant terms and conditions based on the type of grant applications you're looking to submit. So there's specific terms and conditions for individual distribution and gold standard incentive awards, as opposed to cooperative partnership grant awards. We also recommend that you understand the OAA's 25-26 application and reporting dates calendar for city and county. That information, that source provides some relevant information regarding application deadlines, when you can submit applications based on the fiscal years that you're looking to apply for funding for. So that's a very good resource for localities to be mindful of. We also recommend that you confirm that your locality has a primary registered user in the grants portal. And not only that, but that user can get into the portal and they can begin working on things related to your renewal applications. You want to ensure that the individuals who will be completing the applications in the portal ensure that they have access, they're able to log into the portal, and they're able to start working on your renewal applications. We also want to stress that the deadline for cities and counties to submit FY27 funding applications is 11:59 p.m. on March 16th, 2026. We know that sounds like a long time away, but we definitely recommend that localities do not wait to start working on their applications. We actually advise that you start early to avoid any system-related errors or delays or anything of that nature. Start working on it. If you have any questions as you're working on it, that will give you ample time to reach out to us and we can engage and kind of help you walk through any challenges that you may experience while working in the portal. As a resource to our cities and counties, we're also planning to have several Q&A, question and answer technical support webinars. These webinars are designed with you all in mind, so it is your time for you to ask us questions regarding the application process, questions if you need clarification on anything as it relates to the application or the process for applying. That is your time to meet with us, ask us any questions that you may have regarding that process. As you can see here on the screen, we have 4 of those Q&A technical support webinars scheduled prior to the FY27 application deadline of March 16th. So we definitely recommend that you try to attend if you would like all of those sessions or at least one of those sessions. And then following those sessions, we do post the recording to those sessions on the Abatement Academy page within our website. We also recommend that if your project will include any subrecipients, vendors, or contractors, we ask that you provide information in your renewal application regarding the name of those organizations, their role in the implementation of your project, the amount of funding that they are being proposed to receive through the renewal application, the type of organization, and then a brief description of the services that they will be providing as it relates to your proposed project scope. We also require, as a contingency of most awards for projects that have subrecipients, vendors, or contractors, there is a contingency where we require a written agreement, an MOU, or a contract for any of those organizations that are participating in OAA funded projects. If you're proactive and have that information available in terms of, a draft of a MOU or a contract, you're more than welcome to attach that in your renewal application. And then what we would do is just ask you to complete or provide us a copy of the executed version after your project has been approved for award. We also have a tip regarding the application process. So as we mentioned, we advise that localities start working on the applications early. You want to consider this application process as something to work on gradually over time. This process should be collaborative in nature. And with that process, it allows you to save your progress as you're filling in information and completing. You may have a portion of the application that you're responsible for completing, and then you're working with your colleagues in another department within your locality to kind of complete other sections applications. So you can do that. We actually encourage that. We encourage that you work over on the application over the course of weeks and even months rather than just working on it a few days before the deadline. We found in this last FY26 cycle for application cycle for cities and counties, we found that those localities that wait until the last minute to complete and submit their applications, they often have challenges or issues with their application. So we certainly want to stress the importance of starting early. That will help and a smoother application process, and your application will be more successful. So as we mentioned, starting early, engaging with us, we definitely want to stress the importance of engaging with your respective OAA Regional Abatement Resource Coordinator throughout this application process. They're going to be the first source of communication for you to provide technical assistance or answer any questions that you may have regarding the process. And we are happy to announce that we are expecting to have a new employee come on for the central region of the state, but most of you are familiar with Cindy Newman, who's in the western region of the state, Kat Dupree, who represents the northern region, and then Jenny Sawyer. So definitely engage with your regional abatement resource coordinators. Those localities that do engage with their resource coordinator while completing the application, their applications are significantly more comprehensive. So we definitely see the benefit of that. Now I'm going to turn it over to Charlie.
Couldn't get unmuted. Thank you, Sharik. So we want to just kind of highlight the funding sources again, especially for anybody that might be new to this process or just needs a refresher. Sharika, can you start clicking? I didn't realize the animation was still on this. So in the big circle on the left, you see that's how each settlement gets broken apart when it comes to the Commonwealth after an agreement has been entered with the Commonwealth in all 133 cities and counties. 15% goes directly to the Commonwealth. It goes into a special fund that's appropriated by the Governor of the General Assembly. 30% goes direct to each city and county. It's the direct, what we call the direct distribution Sharika has been talking about. And then 55% comes to us at the Opioid Abatement Authority, which is then statutorily broken into the four categories listed out here in the middle. So 15% of the funds that we get are specifically set aside for each city and county. And the distribution process of that 15% is the same as the 30%. And it's enumerated in the Commonwealth Settlement MOU and in the Code of Virginia. So these funds are set aside by the OAA for cities and counties pursuant to statute, and they require the submission of a specific project application. And cities and counties have 5 years from the year the funds were made available to apply for them, or they revert and go in to support our gold standard incentive program. And so the way you calculate that, if you see the first kind of footnote at the bottom, so the funds that were made available or available in the lookup tool on the FY 2023 line need to be applied for by like April of 2028. The funds for 2024 by April of 2029 and so forth. So we're still not we still have a couple years before any of them start to revert, but that is a policy our board adopted a little over a year ago. Then another 35% of our funds are set aside by the OAA for partnerships, which is two or more of the same city. So two or more of cities and counties in the same DBHDS region. Once you've met that first two, it can add as many partners from as many places as you want, but the code requires that the start of the partnership be two within the same DBHDS region. And also requires submission of a specific and competitive project application. So these funds are available for cities and counties, but within each DBHDS region, you're competing for a certain amount of dollars each year. but also your in one way to help improve your chances of receiving an award is you can bring in matching funds, which can include the individual, the gold standard funds, the direct distributions, and any other funds you might be able to have as matching funds for those projects. Another 15% is set aside by the OAA for awards to state agencies from requests for proposals. And then the final 35% is set aside by the OAA for authority operations and to establish other OAA grant programs for cities, counties, and state agencies, such as the Gold Standard Incentive or Operation Stop and a previous couple of rounds of planning grants that we did. If anyone is not familiar with the gold standard, that is a opportunity for cities and counties to get a 25% bump on the funds that OAA has that it is set aside for them. The requirement to do that is that you take that all of the funds a city or county receives directly, they have to commit to using them with the same rules that OAA grants follow, which is a little tighter than what the national settlements have. And it's basically everything that's enumerated in 2.22370 of state code. And we have plenty of resources on that. If anybody is not gold standard and is interested in being gold standard, can certainly reach out and let us know. Did I miss anything on this one, Sharika?
Nope, you didn't, but we had a question in the Q&A that is relevant to this slide. So is
Okay.
the April 1st, 2028, the earliest date by which funds will start reverting? And if a locality has applied for some of their funds, but not all of their funds, will they still revert?
April of 2028 is the first time, because 2023 is the first year that we were able to make funds available. So it's all about when OAA has been able to make them available for cities and counties to apply for. As far as a partial apply, if not all of them have been applied for, I tell you, I will have to review that in the policy. I can't remember if that is or is not addressed, but can provide an answer to that via email to everyone after I've had an opportunity to do that. And I will add that to the guidance document around this once that answer is put together. So sorry, I don't have a answer for that off the top of my head. I'm going to make a note on that. Any others I should have mentioned earlier? You're welcome to ask questions throughout using the Q&A. There'll certainly be an opportunity for questions at the end. That way Sharika and I can see what's going on, and then if there's something that is like pertinent to a particular section or slide, we can work that in.
All right, thank you, Charlie.
Yep.
So shifting gears to the process for applying for the OAA Gold Standard Incentive. You can apply to become a Gold Standard locality as the same process. Basically, you'll go to the Grants Management tab while you're in the Grants portal, and you'll click the OAA Gold Standard Incentive and option the Apply button next to that option. For Gold Standard Incentive localities, you only need to apply once. So once you submit that application, you don't have to do it each year with your renewals. Shifting gears to kind of show you, so we're happy to announce that as of yesterday, the OAA has 67 gold standard localities, and those localities are listed here on the screen. And so these are the localities that are eligible to apply for gold standard incentive funds to support their individual distribution and their cooperative partnership grant applications.
And I would like to note that if you believe you are a gold standard locality and you do not see your name on this list, please reach out to Shrika or your OAA regional liaison, and we can check the records to see if something is missing. There were a few localities that applied during our very first round of funding back in 2023, and that application only had wording in it that was only for that 1 year. So this second application has been designed to be kind of in perpetuity. And it would be on incumbent on a city or county to inform us that they no longer want to be gold standard. And if so, or if there's a compliance issue, certainly. So we want to make sure that we're highlighting everyone that has got that. And so if not, we try to make it a fairly simple application process now and going forward.
So shifting gears, again, thinking about completing and submitting your application, we want to just highlight that you can view the estimated lookup tool for your locality in the grants portal. And so you'll do that by selecting the estimated funds lookup tool option here on the left portion of the screen. You can download this if you need to share this information with someone within your locality. You can download it as a PDF. And we recommend that before you submit an application for your individual distribution or your gold standard for those gold standard localities, that you review your locality's estimated lookup tool in the portal to determine your specific allocation to make sure that you have enough funds to support what you're looking to request. Again, you will see funds allocated as gold standard incentive for your locality, but only those localities that have completed the gold standard incentive application and basically have done that process through the portal. Those are the only ones that are eligible to apply for gold standard incentive funds. So if your locality is not a current gold standard incentive locality and you go into the application and you're looking to request gold standard incentive funds, you will receive a system error until that gold standard incentive locality application is completed. So thinking about the OAA application evaluation criteria, more specific for individual distributions, we recommend that if you're looking to complete and submit an FY27 individual distribution application, and this is even relevant for some FY26 new individual distribution applications because we're currently accepting those. We recommend that you review the grant evaluation criteria, as well as the OAA issued guidance document for individual distribution and gold standard incentive awards for cities and counties before completing and submitting your application to ensure that your application meets the requirements that we use to kind of evaluate those applications when they're received. We also recommend that you review the terms and conditions for individual distribution and gold standard incentive awards, review the conditions and restrictions and priorities that are listed in the Code of Virginia. We also recommend that you review the allowable uses of OAA funds for under the settlement agreement based on Exhibit E. And for applications that the OAA determined do not meet the established requirements, more specifically for individual distribution applications, because these are non-competitive funds, the OAA is more than happy to provide assistance to localities to help with any revisions to facilitate compliance. One OAA tip that we would like to further stress is that you contact the OAA as soon as possible with any questions that you have regarding the individual distribution and gold standard incentive application process, or again, feel free to attend one of the OAA's question and answer webinar sessions. And again, those links to those different sections, as long as the dates, those are provided on slide 5. And this slide deck will be made available for you all. So shifting gears to talk about cooperative partnerships. So,
Eureka, can I
yes.
pop in? Sorry. There's a question in the chat. So do you have any sample submissions to review to ensure we are on the correct track in completing the grant application? For example, the breadth and detail of expenditure elements and milestones. We are working on getting some of those pulled out of our system, since this past spring was the first time we've had a full round of fiscal year awards that have come through the system. So we're working on getting those together and getting some positive samples posted to the website, and also working on kind of a template version of the application where instead of us like making it completed as an application, we can put some of these guidance items in the element where they go, just taking us some time to get that set up through our system while we're also working out some other lingering issues. So once those are available, there'll be a notice on our newsletter about that. Good question. Thank you. Does it?
Carly, we had one more question about whether or not the estimated lookup tool will include the most recent settlements, specifically related to Purdue.
So the update that we're working on finalizing right now will include Kroger, but will not include Purdue. We don't usually include in the lookup tool a settlement until it is fully done and started to pay out, because we have found that numbers adjust little bits here and there as things are getting finalized. But we're working on getting the updated out that will include the most recent round of awards that have impacted individual directs and gold standard fund usage, and to include the Kroger payments as well. And then once we are confident we've got the Purdue numbers, we'll post those and send out a newsletter update. And we'll also do that as soon as we get this one, the current version posted. It's a lot more applications to work in this year than we've had in the past, so it's taking a little longer than anticipated.
All right, thank you. So shifting gears a little to talk about understanding cooperative partnership, that particular grant program. So a cooperative partnership is a partnership formed by at least 2 or more cities and or counties within the same Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services region. And they form this partnership for the purpose of applying for a grant from the OAA to implement an opioid abatement project. So as you're thinking about preparing a cooperative partnership application, we have some recommended steps. So first, you would need to identify partner localities for the proposed cooperative partnership project. Once those partner localities are identified, you'll need to determine which locality is going to serve as the project's fiscal agent. The OAA cooperative partnership funding application must be submitted by the fiscal agent. The fiscal agent, that is the city or county that has been identified by all the partners in the cooperative agreement, is responsible for applying for, receiving, managing, and distributing the funds for the project. The fiscal agent is also responsible for monitoring and reporting on performance measures, progress with the project, and any other OAA reporting requirements. Once you've done that, you also want to ensure the cooperative partners for the proposed partnership are all within the same, again, DBHCS region as the fiscal agent, city or county. You also want to review the sample cooperative partnership agreement for these cooperative partnership projects that is available on our website. That agreement will be completed as a part of the application process for new cooperative partnership projects only. So if you're renewing your cooperative partnership grant funded project, you won't have to complete that again as a part of the renewal application process. If it is a new cooperative partnership application, however, each of those partner localities that are identified in the application, they will be required to sign the agreement, and that process is done through Adobe e-signature. Also, the cooperative partnership agreement, just kind of specifying what that is. It's a written agreement between the cities and counties that are forming the partnership, and it's basically where they are agreeing to be in the partnership and agreeing to work towards this OAA project. Also, for cooperative partnership grant applications, you want to determine whether there's any non-OAA or OAA, which is individual distribution, again, gold standard incentive. If you're a gold standard locality, all those funding sources can be pledged as matching funds to support the proposed project. So with the cooperative partnership project, you want to not only determine any matching funds for the fiscal agent, but also any matching funds for any of the partner localities. And then you also want to review the OAA grant evaluation criteria to ensure that your cooperative partnership funding application addresses all of the requirements for this particular program. So in talking a little bit more about the use of OAA matching funds for cooperative partnership projects, cities and counties have the option to appropriate a portion of their individual distribution and/or gold standard incentive funds to a cooperative partnership project as matching funds. They do not have to submit an individual distribution application to appropriate the individual distribution or gold standard funds as a matching fund to a cooperative partnership project. So let me reiterate, if you are a part of a cooperative partnership project, and you're either the fiscal agent or the partner locality, you don't have to do a separate individual distribution application to pledge individual distribution and/or gold standard matching funds to support a cooperative partnership project. That is all done through the cooperative partnership application. Again, the cooperative partnership agreement documents the commitment and any amounts for the city and county localities that elect to apply any of their individual distribution and/or gold standard funds to a cooperative project. Again, cities and counties must opt into the Gold Standard Incentive Program in order to pledge Gold Standard Incentive funds as a match to a cooperative project. And then for renewals of cooperative partnership awards with those individual distribution and/or Gold Standard Incentive matching funds, they do not require the cooperative partnership agreement to be completed each year. So for those renewals, the partner localities should just document their match each year in writing to the fiscal agent, city or county, and they can provide that to us as an attachment to the application. Moving on to the application evaluation criteria for cooperative partnerships. Again, the OAA tip here is that we recommend you review the cooperative partnership grant evaluation criteria, as well as the OAA issued guidance document for cooperative partnership awards for cities and counties. And we recommend that you do that before completing and submitting your application to make sure that it meets the requirements. And for cooperative partnership applications, we evaluate those based on how they meet the following criteria. So the terms and conditions for cooperative partnerships, the conditions, restrictions, and priorities that are listed in the Code of Virginia. Also, specifically grant applications that accomplish one of the four categories. So they collaborate with an existing program or organization that has an established record of success in treating, preventing, or reducing opioid use disorder or the misuse of opioids, or they treat, prevent, or reduce opioid use disorder or the misuse of opioids in a community with a high incident of opioid use disorder or opioid death rates relative to the population. Other projects that treat, prevent, or reduce opioid use disorder or the misuse of opioids in a historically, economically disadvantaged community, or projects that include a monetary match from or on behalf of the applicant with a higher priority giving to efforts with a larger matching amount. We also recommend that you look at the allowable uses based on the settlement agreement in Exhibit E. We also recommend that you familiarize that we are evaluating projects based on the extent to which the proposed cooperative project identifies and addresses specific gaps, based on how the project removes barriers to access or makes services more accessible to high risk or difficult to serve individuals. We're evaluating projects that specifically serve the needs of pregnant and/or nursing mothers and children. We're evaluating the prospective return on the financial investment offered by the cooperative project, as well as evaluating projects for cooperative partnerships that will be awarded in a manner that distributes funds equitably across all community service board regions of the Commonwealth. So getting into the meat of today's webinar, talking about how to basically nail your application, what steps are needed for successful application completion and submission. So when you're thinking about completing an individual distribution renewal application, again, we want to stress that your locality has an established login account within the grants portal. You want to definitely familiarize yourself or review any OAA issued news updates. That is our official communication to cities and counties in terms of providing information related to due dates, guidance documents, instructions, reporting, etc. Again, you want to make sure you have your direct distribution information by fiscal year. That's going to include the amount of direct distribution funds you received, any amounts that were used for non-OAA funded projects, any amounts of direct funds that you have held in reserves, and then a description for any non-OAA funded projects that those direct settlement funds were used to support. For renewal applications, again, you're going to have to provide us with an update on the status of the project. Note any partner organizations, any subrecipients, any contractors that are renewing their role or being removed or being added to the project for the upcoming fiscal year. Again, there is a piece related to the current fiscal year that you would need to provide. So you would need an estimate of your projected FY26 expenditures. You would need your actual expenditures year to date at the time the application is completed. You'll need your performance measures achieved year to date, again, at the time the application is completed, your objectives achieved with an updated timeline for those objectives, and then your projected fiscal year 26 carry forward amounts and how you're planning to use those carry forward funds, if you have any, in the upcoming fiscal year. If you're amending your project, you would need to give us an explanation and your methodology or your reasoning and decision-making behind those amendments. You'll also need to list and describe any amended objectives for the project. You would also need to list any changes in the specific groups of individuals that the project was initially designed to reach, and then also any changes for how many individuals will be expected to participate in the project per year. You also need to provide us with some information if the amendment alters the originally approved scope. So if there's any changes to the evidence-based or evidence-informed strategies or methods, we need to know what those changes entail, and we'll need updated documentation to support that. The same for program credentialing and/or awards, and then the same for the estimated percentage of opioid-related abatement. So again, while you're going through the process of completing your individual distribution grant application for submission, we recommend that you visit our website. So on our website, you would go to the grants information header at the top of the page, and then you would select the individual distributions for cities and counties. That is where you can access all OAA issued resources related to individual distribution grants. So you'll see any reporting dates, any reporting templates that you need. You'll see our guidance document for individual distribution and gold standard applications. All of that information is comprehensive and it is available on our website. Same process, just providing some information regarding items to gather for cooperative partnership applications. Again, want to make sure you have an established login account in the portal. You want to familiarize yourself with the OAA news updates. Again, with the direct distribution information, the only difference here is that each partner locality that is a part of the cooperative partnership project, they are required to go into the grants portal and complete a direct distribution report. So they would do that through the portal on the grants management tab. They would find the direct distribution option, and then they would complete that report. And that report is due for submission to the OAA the same date as the application due date. So all of those things need to happen before the application due date. You also want to provide the same process as kind of with the individual distributions, but for cooperative partnership renewals, you want to provide an update on the status of the project, any changes to your partner organizations, subrecipients, or contractors. The same information is typically going to be requested in terms of your FY26 projected expenditures, which will be an estimate. You want your year-to-date funds that were expended at the time the application is completed, your year-to-date performance measures achieved, your objectives achieved with an updated timeline, and then your projected FY26 carry forward amounts and how you're planning to use those funds in the upcoming fiscal year. If you're amending a cooperative partnership project as a part of your renewal, you also want to provide an explanation as to why you're amending and what decision-making process went into requesting that amendment. You also want to describe any amended objectives for the project, any changes to the groups the project is designed to reach, and any changes to the amount of individuals that are expected to participate each year, as well as, again, provide any supporting documentation if your amendment impacts your evidence-based or evidence-informed strategy, project credentialing or awards, or the estimated percentage of opioid-related abatement. So again, same process as with the individual distribution. If you're looking to apply for a cooperative partnership grant, go to the grants info option on our page, and then the cooperative partnerships for cities and counties, and we have some extensive guidance and resource documents there available as well. So guidance on completing sections of the application. So if you are completing a new cooperative partnership project, one OAA tip that we recommend: when you get into the portal and you're working on your project, you're going to see a partner contact information page. For this page, you want to ensure that all of your partner localities are listed on this page as contact partners. And for those partner cities and counties for the cooperative partnership project, ensure that you actually have a contact within the city or county listed there. There is an option in the portal where you'll see basically for all localities that says OAA Administrative Contact. Please do not use that contact. That is what the OAA we use whenever we're having to make any technical adjustments or anything of that nature in the portal. So ensure that an actual contact for your partner localities is listed in this section. Same thing for renewal projects. Ensure on the partner contact page that an actual contact within your partner localities is listed on this page. If you're completing a new project, we want to just kind of provide a quick overview of the different sections of the narrative, sections of the project proposal page. So the first section is the narrative description of the project. This is the core of the grant application. This is where you tell the story of the project. In this section, you want to make sure you're addressing the who, what, when, where, and how you're looking to implement your project. You also need to include the purpose of the project, again, be as detailed as possible related to your implementation strategy for the project, and then indicate how your project's objectives will be achieved. This is your opportunity to be as specific as possible to provide as much detail as we will need in order for us to provide that to our grants committee so that they can make a determination on the status of your application. Again, in the long-term sustainability plan for the project, this section should explain how the project will continue to operate after OAA grant funding is no longer available. So in this section, the OAA would like to know how this project will have a lasting impact, and you should also list any future funding sources that you're anticipating will be either applied for or obtained to support the project. You also want to provide strategies for maintaining any staff, services, or infrastructure after the OAA funding is no longer available to support the project. And then you want to use this section to provide information regarding the project's integration into the locality's organizational operations. For the project need in relation to abatement, so that section should be completed as a typical grant need statement where you justify why the project is necessary. In this section, you want to utilize data, research, whether it's quantitative, qualitative, and or testimonials that can be included in this section to highlight why is this project needed? Why do you need these grant funds to implement this project? You also want to provide evidence confirming that your proposed issue is significant and it's not currently being addressed. And you also want to provide some details regarding consequences of not addressing the need that can be added here, as well as setting the stage in this section for why the proposed project matters in its relation to opioid abatement. For the subrecipients, contractors, vendors section, in that section, you want to provide a list of subrecipients, contractors, vendors. Again, in that section, you also want to indicate their role in the implementation of the project, if they're receiving any OAA funding, any OAA funding, how much they're looking to receive, and then just provide us information regarding their particular organization. For the specific groups the project is designed to reach and the number of individuals expected to participate yearly, this is the section that should describe who will benefit from the proposed project. It can include demographic data or details, specific barriers or challenges to that particular population or populations you're looking to serve, and then why was the specific group selected as a part of the project. You also want to indicate how this particular group will be engaged as a part of the project's implementation. And then the goal of this section is for cities and counties to demonstrate that the project is focused, it's equitable, and it's responsive to community needs. In terms of the non-opioid abatement related components section, that section is designed for the locality to indicate whether or not the proposed project has any components that are not directly related to opioid abatement. If the project does have non-opioid abatement components, then you should indicate the percentage of those non-abatement components and provide us a description of what those components entail. And specifically, if you're using any non-OAA matching funds to support that particular component. Also for the budget narrative section. So this section should explain and justify each line item in the proposed project's budget. You want to describe how the costs were calculated. You want to clarify why each cost is necessary for the project's success. And then you want to link your expenses to specific project activities. And you can attach any additional information related to this section if needed, or any of the other sections. But we use this section and this information to basically assess financial responsibility, transparency, and alignment between your objectives, your performance measures, and your proposed use of funding. So shifting gears from new applications to renewals, the only difference here is related to amendments. So for renewal applications, you can have amendments, and those amendments can consist of things such as adding partners to the cooperative partnership project, modifying your matching funds, whether that's OAA or non-OAA for the renewal, requesting carry forward, modifying project objectives, modifying your performance measures, or modifying the cooperative partnership funds for the project. And so based on those amendment categories, you will provide updates on the project proposal page in terms of how those amendments impact the status update of your project. How do they impact your long-term sustainability plan? How do they impact your subrecipients or the specific groups that the project is designed to reach? And so this is more tailored towards giving us an update. If you're having any amendments, how do those amendments impact the sections of this page? But then also what has taken place with the project. So letting us know kind of where the project stands at the time that you're completing the renewal application. When you're thinking about your budget, so for your personnel expenses with the budget, you want to ensure that the current fiscal year personnel expenditures by line item, you have that information when you're completing your renewal. And again, that information is required for the localities to report on how much has been expended and how much will be carried forward based on their current FY26 OAA approved positions. So we want to note here that current fiscal year expenditures must align with the cities or counties' own expenditures, not those of the subrecipients. So what we mean by that is several localities may have partnered with subrecipients, and subrecipients are helping complete a portion of the renewal application or helping. We've experienced some that have helped with the reporting requirement when we're, in the current reporting period. When you're doing your renewal application, you want to make sure that your reported year-to-date expenditures and your financial information is related to the awardee city or county, not the subrecipient, because the OAA award is from the OAA to the awardee city or county. So again, we want to stress, while the fiscal agent is responsible for tracking and monitoring subrecipient spending, only the locality's expenditures related to the grant should be reported. For all projects, you'll need to indicate how much is needed to support both salaried and part-time wage positions for the upcoming fiscal year. So if you were working on an FY27 renewal, you would need to know how much is needed to support through the current fiscal year. Moving to operating and capital, just some quick updates regarding this. You'll need to know how much you've expended by line item expenses for operating and capital expenses. And again, we want to stress that you will need to report on your expenditures based on the city or county's expenses. One note here that we also want to reiterate, if you have any subrecipients for the project and those subrecipients are hiring staff, those personnel expenses are going to be listed as operating expenses. And so we break down how that needs to be listed when you're doing your renewal application. And then the same thing for your budget overview. When you're indicating your expenditures there, report the locality's expenditures and ensure that they are not the subrecipient expenditures as you're doing the budget overview. So for the sake of time, we're going to kind of skip past through some of these things. Charlie's going to touch bases related on just some key takeaways. So I'm going to turn it over to Charlie.
Thanks, Sharika. Apologize. Had a lot of information we wanted to get out to you all today, and want to be respectful of everyone's time running towards here, and make sure there's some time available for questions. So we'll go with I'll go through some of the highlights here at the end, and then we'll provide more information regarding the other slides as a follow-up. So guiding principles. So takeaways. These are the things to kind of refer back to. Go ahead, Sharika. Next, thank you. Start early. You've heard Sharika say that the best applications are developed over time. I can tell an application that was put in at the last minute, it is often missing things, and that makes more work for you and more work for us, and makes it harder for us to be able to process things and potentially recommend them for award. Reading the guidance, the instructions, and the communications that we send out are also key. We have had people that have really not engaged with us at all submit very excellent applications because they've sat down and read everything. I know it's time consuming and tedious, and I'm sure boring, but it is there as a guide to help you put things together. Do reach out to the OAA for support. We're always here to assist. As Sharika mentioned before, remember your role. So applications are coming from cities and counties, not subrecipient organizations. If you are a subrecipient organization working with the city or county, make sure that putting things together for them, make sure that application is coming from the city or county's perspective, not your perspective as the subrecipient. Do engage your city, county, finance and or budget office. A financial review of the application, especially the budget and its alignment with objectives and timelines, is essential to a thorough application. We've seen many projects come through that are great programmatically and just don't make any sense financially. And so these people are available, and these are the people that actually are receiving the funds when they come into your localities in your finance office. So make sure that they are engaged and ask them for some review. And then if you have any other things, we're also happy to review those things as well. Proper signatures are important. The city and county executive, their deputy, or someone with official delegated authority to authorize applications and pledge funds for the governing body. So they someone that has the authority to take action for the Board of Supervisors or the City Council should be the person signing our applications and related documents. I'm going to work on some of the additional guidelines put out about kind of like an if then as to who can sign, and if it's below a certain level, who, what else needs to be provided, because we've had to send a lot of reports and applications back for improper signatures. Next. All renewal applications must provide year-to-date progress of the project. Shrika kind of went through a lot of this. So you need to be thinking about that before you go in and start working on things. You can, or getting ready to submit. We need to know the status by a narrative. We need the performance measures achieved year to date, the funds expended year to date, the objectives achieved. Note if the city or county receives these from another organization, make sure your agreement with them includes regular reporting and they know what dates you will need the information by to submit your application on time. Also, you must provide a projection of the amount of funds that will be spent by the end of the performance period as part of the application. That projection helps us determine the amount of funds available for carry forward into the next performance period. We know it's an estimate. That's why we have our carry forward true up process that occurs after the thing. But this gets us an ability to get some things approved and awarded based on where you believe you're going to end, so that awards can be made before the start of the next performance period. And if you do have carry forward, its use into the next year needs to be tied to specific, project expenditures. It's not something that can be used for, oh, let's buy some things or, some quick liquidation type things. It needs to have a specific use that is related to the abatement project. Next slide. All new applications, you're working with subrecipients, make sure that you've got engaging with those subrecipients, that proper procurement requirements are followed. We do not prescribe anything past, follow in the terms and conditions past following the Public Procurement Act and or locality public procurement laws. The scope of work, think about what your scope of work will be for that subrecipient, how you're going to monitor it, how you're going to receive information from them and hold them accountable to those requirements. Also, will the subrecipient potentially have subrecipients itself? How are they going to be monitored? And remember that city and counties, as the awardee, ultimately responsible for the actions of subrecipients. If you are a subrecipient working on an application form or to present to a city and county, ensure proper officials are aware, especially if the application plans to utilize individual distribution gold standard and or direct distribution funds. There may be, just because something shows available in the lookup tool, that is based on that is updated from OAA standpoint based on when we receive information, but we don't have active reporting coming from every city and county constantly. So things could have been allocated by a Board of Supervisors action or city council action, especially amongst the direct distributions that we may not be aware of. So we don't want you to spend a bunch of time expecting to get some money that's not there. So engaging early with them is another good key. And ensure you have documentation. Back one that connects your project that connects the project you're presenting to evidence-based practices. Right. This one here, it is very, very common for us to get an application and see data in the narrative that doesn't match with the objectives and the timelines, that does not match with the budget, and does not match with the performance measures. These things should align. I know a lot of times different people are working on an application, and these are probably results of different people doing things at different times, adjustments being made and then being made in one section and not others. But when a narrative says it's going to serve 600 people, the objective timeline says they're hoping to serve, they're going to serve 200. The budget is requesting supplies to serve 1,000 people, but the performance measures only say they're going to get 50. None of those things align. You even see this sometimes between the budget and the budget narrative having different numbers. So things should all tie out. So a good review across those and making sure their alignment will get you fairly farther. And lastly, communication is key. So if you are not subscribed to our newsletter, please do. You can catch it on the news and updates page at the top, on the home page at the bottom. There's lots of different ways. If you have a newsletter, if you forward it to someone, all they have to do is click the link at the bottom. They can go straight in and add their email to subscribe. And all FY26 grants, we have a requirement of a contingency to ensure appropriate staff or the fiscal agent partners and subrecipients are subscribed and regularly reviewing the contents. This is our primary form of communication to applicants and awardees. Our news update newsletter. And so when we put things out there, we expect them to be paid attention to, dates to be followed, instructions and revisions to be followed. And so, and if you're not understanding it, please reach out and we're happy to provide clarity. Last slide, I think. Yep. There's our contact information. And from here, we'll open it up to any questions. You can use the Q&A. If you want to type something, or if you have something you'd rather ask verbally, you can use the hand raise and you're authorized to speak. And if anyone didn't see in the chat, when the recording of this is available, you should receive an email. And when it's posted on our website, a copy of the slide deck will be made available. And we will be working on creating a guidance document as well from the information in the slide deck, and when that's out, we'll also make an announcement through our newsletter. The last chance for any questions. Oh, I'm good. Nope. Okay. I'm not seeing anything. Appreciate everyone being here today. Please check out the website on the Abatement Academy. You can see the upcoming sessions we have on various programs, abatement programs for the rest of the year. And please register and check those out. And later this year or early into next calendar year, we'll be posting our schedule for 2026. Thank you all for being here.